If Tim Burton makes another movie, it has to be this one.
Bruh.
This is only the beginning of my true resurrection.
Arriving on a nightmare, praying for a dream.
True resurrection.
So one thing I noticed was kind of disappearing from animation. There's a topic as far as like children's literature goes and children's entertainment goes that they're not quite ready to deal with mature themes, which is kind of ironic considering that literally every Disney movie the mother is either dead or sick or missing. I finished reading Nightmares, and the whole theme of the book kind of circles around the fact that the main character lost his mother. He's dealing with the loss of his mother, and his greatest fear is that his family will forget his mother, and that his family will eventually forget about him. That's what his nightmares represents. He ends up visiting the netherworld pretty much every night in his dreams, to the point where he's trying to drink as much black coffee as possible to stay awake because he's afraid to go to sleep. He's afraid that his stepmother is actually the witch haunting his dreams, and that she is going to take his family away, and she is going to take everything else away from him. It deals with a lot of very important themes, and this might be more for like middle schoolers and teens. I can see children being allured to this. This book is like, think of like any Tim Burton movie mashed up with Alice in Wonderland.
Good boy.
It's like Coraline meets Paranorman meets Corpse Bride all in one. It's a really good book. I enjoyed the story thoroughly. Towards the end, it kind of got a little bit cheesy. It did raise some questions when it comes to dealing with important themes in children's books, and I feel like people in the animation industry especially are starting to shy away from that more so. They'll deal with like the tragic loss of a loved one as a person's backstory to give them more character and to give them more development, something to overcome. The acceptance of losing a loved one is never easy. And I feel like a lot of books, especially in YA, take advantage of this. I think some people are afraid to put some of these important elements into stories meant for younger children and middle schoolers and teenagers because they're very heavy elements, and it can kind of feel awkward because it's not really our place to teach them about that just yet. And we've kind of misconstrued the concept of what exactly children are able to absorb and understand. Granted, I felt with death from a very young age. I learned about it at the age of 5. My great-grandfather passed away. I came home from school. My mother told me the news. It wasn't that I didn't understand it. It was just for the first few seconds that I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how quickly somebody could just be gone from your life and you will never see or hear their voice ever again. Most children don't have to deal with that, but eventually they do have to deal with the loss of either a grandparent, a parent, a sibling, God forbid. And I think that this book definitely handled it well. It presented something that the character had to overcome. The deepest fears that you are repressing is the acceptance that this person is gone from your life and there is no way of bringing them back. And again, I think that it is awkward for writers to want to write about these things or incorporate them in their story when they're meant for younger kids. YA, it's more understandable because by then they've been conditioned by the media, by pretty much everything that's out there. Take it in a little bit easier. But children do understand this. Children can relate to this. I've mentioned Ransom's Mark a couple of times. Wendy Lawton's Ransom's Mark was actually based on a true story, the story of Olive Oatman and her sister. Now, I was appalled at the tragic loss of her entire family by the Yavapai tribe that attacked them suddenly. Their entire wagon train, pretty much everybody that she knew and loved died, and her sister were taken captive. They were later sold as slaves to the... starts with an M. I know it starts with an M. And then they end up treating them well. They try to help her sister who's developed a cough. I'm pretty sure her sister had tuberculosis. It's not really set in there or clarified what exactly she had because they didn't know. They just know that it was a pneumatic disease. It was a chronic disease. She'd had that cough since the beginning, and she ended up passing away. And that was the first time that a book actually made me cry because I just couldn't believe that these girls went through everything. And the fact that it was a true story just made it so much harder. Later, I read Wendy Lawton's The Tinker's Daughter, which is actually about Mary Bunyan and how she was blind. I found out that she died at the young age of 13, I believe. In that book, it specifically dealt more so with bullying and struggling with blindness. I read Heartland at 14, where in the first book she loses her mother and she's struggling with the acceptance of this and the acceptance that her sister is rolling in and All of a sudden her sister has a responsibility of the farm and taking care of everything, and she just wants to throw it all out and sell it and be done with it because she doesn't think that she can handle it. And then we have the Disney movies, we have the movies that deal with death, we have the movies that deal with illness. And while I don't think that we need this in like every story or every movie, we do need to make it somewhat easier to digest, especially for a younger audience. But I think a lot of people have been questioning that, is this necessary? Especially when you're talking about PBS programs and you're talking about entertainment purely meant for kids. There have been people that I've talked to that kind of shy away from that concept because they don't think that kids need to be exposed to that yet. Books that dealt with death and illness were the ones that I could relate to, mostly because of what I had seen from my childhood experiences. There are a lot of kids out there that have to deal with situations that they are not able to comprehend or able to understand. And I think that taking away the important themes not only is taking away the hopes that a person can overcome these things and that a person can come out on the other side okay and learn and grow from it, but you're also taking an important part that there are going to be kids out there that are going to be able to relate to this, and this will help them feel less alone. I don't think that we need to go overboard when it comes to children's literature and have literally everybody dying around them and everything be doom and gloom. I mean, that's... But I don't think that we need to completely extract it from literature, especially with the excuse that it's just not going to help and it might even hinder. I feel like it would be more hindering to rip that away, all for the sake of our peace of mind. What about the person that might be going through physical or emotional abuse? What about that person that is struggling with suicide or has been raped and has nobody to talk to or listen to? I don't like it when they explicitly describe the action itself. Problem that I have with Branded, I don't think she was raped, but it was so overly descriptive, even for almost being raped, that it made me feel uncomfortable. Too far to the point where it could be triggering to that person. Might want to be a little bit careful of that. But that's why I liked Winter Girls, is it showed the dark side of anorexia. It showed the dark side of bulimia, and that book is meant for teens and middle grade readers. As far as Nightmares goes, everything came around full circle to the end. To the feeling of being alone and finding out that he's not actually alone. He's got friends that are willing to help them. His family's willing to help them. And the person that he hated the most, that he blamed the most, is actually going out of her way to also help. It's a very good story. I will definitely be getting the rest of the books in the trilogy. I'm hoping for more. It was really well written. The characters are very likable. All around, good story. I'd see you next time.